Me too. It's kind of,
It's
it
so
didn't
great,
start.
you know?
Yeah, it's so wonderful
Mhm.
to be here. And you have a beautiful back image, Akiko. What is it? Is it
Our
real or
museum
fake?
garden. It's not fake, it's our museum garden.
That's why
You
you need to
see
say,
the
because
lanterns?
now, yeah, it's
Wow, you have
beautiful.
a real view. Wow.
Yeah, she has
Yeah,
real view, so
it doesn't look real. It looks fake. That's the problem, you see.
it's so beautiful that it looks kind of, yeah, a postcard or something. So it's wonderful.
It's real.
Right.
So,
1 minute to go, but
everyone's
we're already live.
Oh, we are. Okay.
We are, we
Exciting.
are.
Exciting.
It's fantastic.
Lisbon, Hong Kong, and Tokyo.
Lisbon, Hong Kong, and Tokyo. Fantastic. Right. Right. So I think we're going to start. Welcome to you all. My name is Marta Lourenco, and I am the UMAC chair. UMAC is the University Museums and Collections Committee of ICOM, the International Council of Museums. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here today for the series of 3 presentations of the finalists of the UMAC Award 2022. So today I'm joined with one of the representatives of the, I'm sorry, but I have things bleeping in my computer, forgot to switch them off. Now it's good, no bleeps, no noise, no interference. So I'm here, I'm here with Akiko Fukuno, the chair of the UMAC Award Committee. Thank you, Akiko, for all your work. And I'm also here with the representative of our first finalist, and that is the Art Museum of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And I'm here with Josh Yu. So, Akiko, perhaps I could pass you the
Okay.
commands of this session. Let's
Okay.
hear, exciting. Let's hear
Okay.
about Hong Kong.
Thank you very much, Marta, for the introduction. I'm speaking from Tokyo, Japan. It's 5 o'clock p.m. And I will tell you, this is not a fake background. This is the real live museum garden, okay? Anyway, today I'd like to introduce Josh from the Chinese University of Hong Kong and his wonderful museum project for our UMAC Award 2022. So Josh, I'm sure that you're ready to do your presentation and you can start sharing your slides and speak about your
Thank you, Akiko,
project.
and thank you, Marta. Good afternoon, everybody, and good morning to some of you, and good evening to others who are in other time zones. It gives me great pleasure to tell you a little bit about our projects here. We are extremely honored to be selected as a finalist for the UMAC Award for 2022. So allow me to share my presentation with you. Can you see my screen now? Okay, very well.
Absolutely. All good. Go on. Go on.
Good. So the project that I would like to speak about today, it's called Time Travel Hong Kong. Time Travel Hong Kong, what is it? It is a VR tour that juxtaposes Google Street Views with historical artworks, to put it in a nutshell. And it was originally created on Google Poly, which is a platform. And here I show you a slide that shows what this tool is about with Google Street Views and some of the artworks that we put on view. And let me give you some background about how this project came about. It was originally developed to support an exhibition titled Hong Kong Impressions. And it was an exhibition that was held in the summer and fall of 2020. And it featured historical paintings and photographs of Hong Kong. And here on the right, you see a slide with the gallery view where we show some of our historical paintings of Hong Kong. And what I've circled in the red circle is a QR code. So visitors are able to scan in the code, and then they will be taken to various regions of Hong Kong where they would see the current Google Street views, and then with some of the paintings that are currently on view. And for this project, we mobilized our interdisciplinary scholars, and they included art historians, cultural anthropologists, sociologists, and literature experts. And for this exhibition, we produced a highly scholarly catalog. And we also invited some scholars to do an interview with us, which we also featured in the gallery. So we have assembled a lot of information that we used to include in the VR tour, primarily from the catalog and also from our conversations with these scholars. Now, we scored some points with, okay, and the first thing that was quite significant is that we were able to showcase artworks that had not been published or considered as masterpieces before. And some of the visitors who came to see our exhibition had actually never heard of some of these artists that we put on show. They included Yip Yan Chun. And here we have a comment from a visitor that said, they have seen pictures of Chun Wan in the New Territories of Hong Kong, and there were a number of paintings done by famous artists called Lui Shaoquan, and then another artist, Yip Yan Chun. And then here, he especially highlighted this image that you see right in the middle of Chou Gong Tang. And then he was very moved by it because of its watercolors and its depiction of the site. And then what's very interesting was that we were able to virtually trace the footsteps of the artist and position the viewers in their shoes. So here in the larger image that you see is a screen grab of the VR tour, where we show the image that was on view, and also the current Google Street View where that site may have been taken from the perspective of the artist. And while we were researching, this viewpoint of the artist, we actually went on Google Street Maps, and then we try to locate where the artist was positioned. And so what you see on the lower right is actually another image showing Google Street Maps to show you, the path that the artist may have taken, how he got into that point, and where he may have, sketched this particular image. And so it was very interesting exercise for us as scholars to try to, literally walk those paths of the artists or the photographers. And then another very interesting point about this VR tour is that it contrasted a contemporary Google rendering of a place with a historical and idealized vision of the painting. So for those of us who are familiar with the sites, we are actually very keen to find out how much the place has changed from the time that the artist has painted it, say half a century ago, to the current street views. And for places that had not changed all that much, what we will become interested in finding out is to see how the artist chose to omit certain details and how they chose to play up certain elements of the scene that they consider to be very this was another very interesting aspect in our research, and this is not lost on our visitors. And in fact, we had a very nice comment from a visitor who wrote down this comment on a painting, and he said, I would like to read out this quote. He said, "I have been working near Tin Hau Temple in Stanley for over 3 years. This painting from 70 years ago touched me a lot. Some of the sceneries can still be seen today. When I try to imagine how this place was like, I cannot help but making reference to its current view while translating the traditional ink painting language of this place in my mind to enrich that imagination. This double translation, when compared to viewing just an old photo, brings more room for personal interpretation. It may not be accurate enough as a historical record of how the place looked, but it does inspire us creatively as a piece of art. So this is exactly the kind of feedback that we would have liked to see in our visitors. And I was very pleased that our VR tour was able to achieve that. So this exhibition, as well as the tour, created a sizable impact on the local community. In addition to the fact that it was the most popular virtual tours of Hong Kong on Google Poly, it also engaged the public and allowed us to crowdsource for more information. So for instance, when we put up these images online, we got a lot of feedback, and sometimes our visitors gave us information that we did not know. For instance, on the painting on the left, we found that the building with the cross used to be a primary school. And this is an information that was applied to us by other people. And then the image on the right, showcasing Shanghai Street in Mongkok, another visitor commented that the 3-story building on the right-hand side was likely to have been a very popular restaurant, Shanghai Street. So these are the kind of information that we found to be extremely interesting and fun. And then finally, we find that a major impact on the local community was that it boosted local tourism and morale of the city in crises. At the time that we were planning this exhibition, Hong Kong was actually undergoing its most difficult period in 2020 and 2021. It was, shortly after the social movement, and then the city was struck by the pandemic. It was a very hurtful time for the local citizens here. And in fact, at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, we witnessed some very violent confrontations between the police and the protesters. People were hurt. People were scared. I was scared. And, it was not an easy time for us. Not to mention the fact that the university lost out, huge amounts of donations, but actually very few people were willing to come into campus because people thought that the campus was not safe, even, several months after the confrontations took place. So at that time, we at the museum felt extremely restless and anxious. Our priority was not even thinking about, trying to do anything, spectacular, but we were just trying to think about ways to make ourselves useful and to take part in a way that could help the city to heal. But of course, this is something that was on our minds and we weren't sure what we could do. But then we thought, well, we have this selection of wonderful paintings on the city, and why don't we do something about that? At first, we just wanted to do it to find a way to reconnect with our community. And then we find that, the paintings and also the educational programs and our tour really resonated with our visitors. So when some people came to see the exhibition and when they saw the paintings online, they left us some very, positive remarks. And here, this one remark I thought was very moving. And he said that, I wish Hong Kong can rise from the ashes and regain her prosperity as the once Pearl of the Orient. Her radiant beauty can continue for another 100 of years. Now, the painting that you see on the screen is titled Pearl of the Orient. It was painted in the 1950s. It was a panoramic image of the city done, over 60 years ago, almost 70 years ago now. And so when our visitors came to see this painting and made that comment about rising from the ashes, that comment needs to be seen in its context in 2020 and 2021. And for those of us who were present in Hong Kong, we knew exactly how these visitors felt. So it was very gratifying to see that when, people would, regain that trust of the university and that they had the hearts to come out to our museum and to see an exhibition like this and to leave out such meaningful comments. It was it was a very therapeutic experience for all of us concerned. So having said that about our personal experience, we also want to make the point that we felt that this tool could actually have greater ramification for the university community as a whole, especially for our colleagues in university museums. First of all, we think that it provided an alternative online exhibition. And I'm sure all of you are aware of the fact that there are many online exhibitions that happened over the past few years. And oftentimes we see that there are, renderings of an exhibition gallery using, high-tech renderings. And then oftentimes those are quite costly. And frankly, I do not find those experience so rewarding, because you're just really getting a sense of what that museum gallery looked like, but you don't necessarily get as much information about the works of art. We believe that in our experience, in our experimentation with this tool, we were able to shed light on our permanent collection. And we also think that it could be helpful to a lot of the other museums, because it is basically an open source technology at no extra cost. And then we felt that this is one way for us to engage our local communities, our visitors, our web users, our prospective students, and also our foreign exchange students. And on that note, during the late 2020 and 2021, CUHK, the Chinese University, we were not able to take in international exchange students. So it was, a lot of the exchange students were quite disappointed that they could not come to Hong Kong because of the stringent social distancing measures. So what we did at the university was that we hosted the virtual student exchange program. And in fact, our virtual reality tour was one such program for our virtual exchange students. And so we were able to use this platform to introduce the arts and history of Hong Kong. And for students who were in different parts of the globe, from Latin America to North America to Europe to Russia and Japan and elsewhere. And here I have some comments that we have collected from some of the students. So just going through those tours with us, a student from Chile said that he had never been to Hong Kong, but he would love to visit the Victoria Peak and other tourist sites and historical places that we have demonstrated on our tour. And then in this particular workshop for our international students, we were not simply talking about the arts and culture and history of Hong Kong. We also used the theme of urbanization to ask our students to reflect on the changes of cityscapes. And so this really resonated with some of the students in other parts of the world that have witnessed radical changes in their hometowns. So one student from Australia said that there were many Aboriginal sites across the country that had been destroyed or damaged due to colonization and modern development. And so now with this project that we have introduced through the VR tour, she wanted to pay more attention to those developments in her hometown, and we find that to be very helpful as well. And for that reason, I was very pleased that our virtual exchange program was a finalist for the Times Higher Education 2021 award. Now, of course, I have said a lot of good things about this VR tour, but there were challenges, and I'm free to admit that. And in fact, the biggest challenge was that the original platform that we put this VR tour on Google Poly, it was closed last year in June 2021, a few months after the end of the exhibition. But luckily, there was another platform for us to use, and also on Google, it was Google Earth. And so we spent some time to do the data migration. And what we found was that it turned out to be a new opportunity for us, because when we compared the functionalities of Google Poly and Google Earth, we found that Google Earth was actually even more user-friendly. For instance, we find that the artworks were placed adjacent to the Google Street Views, so it created greater visual clarity. And also, Google Earth allowed the video pop up on the same web page. So for some of the interviews that we had done with scholars, we can put the video hyperlink there and people can simply click on the video link. Whereas previously in Google Poly, the video hyperlinks would require the users to leave the website. So we consider this move to Google Earth a bonus. And then another bonus for Google Earth was that there were more text spaces for our textual information and also for us to share other findings that our visitors had given us. And so in conclusion, I wanted to say that our Time Travel Hong Kong VR tour was very much a product of the times that transcends time and outlives the exhibition. Okay, the time that it was created, it was, was under a certain set of social conditions. But we believe that once we have done something like this, it will continue to resonate with our public. And we are very happy that even now, the tools have continued to make an impact. And in fact, after the exhibition ended, we had continued to build on our permanent collection because some artists had decided to donate their early paintings of Hong Kong that they had done in the 1960s and 1970s to us. So we can continue to build on this platform for the virtual tour. And then secondly, we truly believe that our virtual reality tour is a living testimony to diversity and inclusion for a global audience. Nowadays, we often talk about the importance of diversity and inclusion. But while it is very easy to just talk about these issues, I mean, very easy to chant slogans, but to really build a program that satisfies these needs are extremely difficult. I think from what we have been through, it would not have been possible, it would not have been appropriate for us to simply to include different viewpoints in an exhibition or in a tool that say that, oh, we are an inclusive organization that includes certain perspectives from point A and then to point B. That would simply be scrapping the surface. But what we really, in the end, was able to come up with was this platform that will allow people from all walks of life to find something that they could enjoy in. For instance, I think that when they look at these paintings of old Hong Kong and these historical photographs, they find that these images were very moving, heartwarming, and for a second, we see that in our galleries there were different kinds of people, from district councillors and from children to university students. I'm not going to speculate the perspectives on politics, but I think what was important was that they come to appreciate something that they all believe in, that they all had an interest in. So in other words, what the museum had created was that there was no reason to disagree on something that they could potentially agree on. And in this particular case, it was their love of our hometown for Hong Kong. So in this one particular comment that we have quoted in the slide here is that this visitor said how much he appreciate this painting on Aberdeen, which represented old Hong Kong with the fishermen and the seafood market. We are a coastal city that takes advantage of whatever there was available. The spirit of Hong Kong was its flexibility. And it is true that the world keeps changing, but we Hong Kongers don't give up and no one can beat us. So, in other words, this tool provided a very upbeat and positive image for our audiences. And the reason that I say that it was for a global audience was because, I have mentioned earlier why it was, suitable for our local audience from all walks of life. But another reason why it was also suitable for our global audience was that for other visitors who are not familiar with Hong Kong or who are not familiar with the artworks on display or on this VR tour, what they find in our description is a very authentic description of our place. So that's why we are, doing a lot of research that digs deep into the images and the artworks, but we really feel that the outcome is that it radiates to a much larger audience that that other people can relate to. So that was another satisfying aspect of this tool. And then finally, I want to emphasize the fact that it was this tool is a technological aid and a replicable model to amplify the power of university museums. Now, I believe that a lot of the museums will have images of their hometowns, Barcelona, London, Tokyo, you name it. All of the museums will probably have some images of their hometown. And I would encourage these museums to explore this tool to develop a virtual reality tool based on the images that they have, and then to juxtapose them with their street views for the benefit of their students and their prospective students and other tourists. So the good point about this this model is that we do not claim ownership to it. We encourage everybody to do it, and for those of you who decide to do it 6 months later or some other time, you don't even need to credit us to say that, oh, we get this idea from CUHK. In a sense, it's kind of irrelevant. And in fact, on that note, I am not going to rule out the possibility that some other museum or some other gallery may have used this technology to showcase some of the images or artworks that they wanted to feature. But of course, the world is a big place, so we have not done enough research to see whether similar things have been done by other museums. But the idea for this tool is to show you that this existing product had worked for us in a good way. And then finally, I want to thank all of you for spending the time here. And again, I want to thank my team and the researchers and other people who have contributed to this project. If I have time, maybe I can go live onto this tool and to just give people a flavor of what this tool feels like. Do we have time, Marta?
Please do that.
Okay,
please.
Well, let me just go to the link. Let me try to share screen again. Can you see?
We can see.
Okay.
And I will put the copy. I will copy the link directly to our friends who are watching on YouTube channel.
Yeah, so they can play with it. It's a lot of fun.
Exactly.
Okay, so
but don't
here
play now because now don't play now because now Josh will explain. Play later. Okay, here we go.
Okay, so now on the left we have a description about this VR tour, and are you ready? Okay, we are gonna get started. Well, first of all, we are going to see Kowloon, and here we provide a brief description of what Kowloon was like back in the 1940s and to 1970s. Now, in this tour, we have 23 places, and I don't want to take up the entire time of our presentation today to go through this place, but let's just say, I pick up this place, Stonecutters Island, okay? And you zoom right into it.
Wow.
Okay, so what you see is the
Wow.
current Google Street View of the Stonecutters Island, and then right next to the painting from our collection on the right-hand side, okay? And here you can, Google Earth will allow you to do this 360 views. So you see what, how much the place has changed. Now, what is interesting, I'll just say 30 seconds about this particular artwork. The painter, Liu Shaoquan, actually worked for a ferry company. So you could imagine that he was probably somewhere in here 50 years ago when he decided to paint this island. So it was a lot of fun for us to just simply pick out this scene from Google Street Views. Now let's try another place. Let's try Lock Road in Tsim Sha Tsui. So it will take you back out and then take you back into this area. So now you are now in Tsim Sha Tsui, and the photograph that you see on the right is an original colored slide from the 1950s. taken by a military officer from America. He donated the slides back in 2019 to us. And here again, you see how much the place has changed. And again, because of Google Earth, you can just go to other parts of the place. So here we can get out of the view. But anyway, the interesting part about Google Earth is that for some of you who had been to Hong Kong before, maybe you're not familiar with some of these places that we have shown here. But what our project has shown is that it will allow you to orient yourself, from the places that you have visited previously to some of these tourist sites or some of these historical sites that we have featured here for your benefit. So we think that this is a great tool for other people to play with. Okay, so that's all I have to share for now. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing now.
Wow. No, it was fantastic. Fantastic. Loved it. And the presentation was so clear. And of course, it takes a lot of amount of, well, first of all, one thing that I would comment, I don't have any questions yet. I have some, but let's hear.
Okay.
But one of the things I would like to comment is that it's really true that COVID, the pandemic, stimulated in incredible ways, unimaginable ways, the creativity and innovation, especially in university museums, because they have at hand all sorts of expertise and technologies and so on. So, I mean, we've heard both in our conferences, but also in the recent projects of the UMAC Award, how university museums brilliantly reoriented themselves toward reconnecting with their audiences. And Josh gave really an illustration of how this was done in the case of the Art Museum of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So congratulations, first of all. It's really a spectacular and fits totally all the criteria of the UMAC Award, of which one, I don't remember the others, let me see, but one of the criterion is precisely the transferability, the applicability in other contexts of other university museums. So there's also innovation, creativity, excellence, transferability, and impact. So definitely the time travel project fits these categories, and it goes beyond because it really illustrates how the pandemic, and in the case of Hong Kong, as you clearly said, more than the pandemic, also the social suffering and was so important for the context of this project. Akiko, sorry, I said I would not talk, you see how I am.
It's okay, just great presentation, great questions, and great comments. I have one question, may I ask? It looks like you use Google Earth, free, but was it that easy to develop this website and like this app that everyone can just go on, using their own collection?
Yes, it is open source. You just Google Google Earth.
Is open source. But now, who can develop this website? Anyone?
Anyone. Actually, what I find to be quite interesting is that how other people would choose to use Google Earth. And oftentimes you would find people who have visited other places, they would talk about, oh, amazing hikes, in this part of the earth. Or some people may say, oh, my honeymoon, and then they have visited these various sites. So people use it for all different kinds of purposes. But in the end, we thought that one way that it could suit us in the museum field was that we could use this, use the Google Street Views to compare it with paintings or artworks about a particular place. And it was very gratifying.
And did you have a lot of student engagement or involvement in this project?
Sorry, you asked whether we had students to help to work on this project? Yes. We engage with a lot of students. Actually, We had our research assistants who helped to look up the historical references of various places. So this project could not have been done without students, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
And we had entertained quite a number of classes who decided to come to see the exhibition, and then oftentimes, after the exhibition, they would go on to the tour to learn more about the artworks and to try to figure out exactly which places the paintings were referring to. So it worked out for us.
Thank you. And maybe Marta, you have maybe some questions from the floor, from the audience?
I do. Well, let's see first the audience. Let's give them preference. At the moment, there are no questions or comments from the audience. There's a lot of people watching at the moment. So I would encourage everyone, it's not every day that you have Josh Yu here with us, presenting this project. And the brilliant team also, I forgot to mention. So leave your questions, leave your comments. We're live, so we'll be delighted to pass on everything you have to say to Josh. But meanwhile, I have a question, Josh. One of the most interesting dimensions of the project, and in this dimension, it gets closer to other museums, to other projects of citizen science in some science museums, is that, of course, you collect information. You're collecting information because people are leaving, text and comments, and you're engaging them, you're stimulating them to leave below or on the site or the painting or near, on that block of information of data. You are stimulating people to write you. So my question is, how much of that is used not only for reflection but to actual document the collections, because you can actually maybe use, of course, it's like, my honeymoon was there, we had lots of hamburgers, whatever kind of nonsense. Fine, it's interesting because it gives a little bit of the social life of Hong Kong and of that particular place, urban place. But sometimes there will be, I wonder, some comments of people who would say, I don't know, some information that's more relevant for the context of the painting and that could be used for the database of the collections. Did you find that situation? Did it happen? Did you use the information? Did you get in touch with the people? Did you send us more info? Did you put it in the database, or was it just reflection? How did that work, that part of feedback?
We didn't quantify the number of comments that were quote unquote useful, but we did find quite a bit of useful information from the people that we have interviewed with and from our visitors. So in addition to those two comments that I have highlighted, showcasing the primary school and this other place, we also have some comments from our visitors on other paintings that could help us to identify various local landmarks. But not only that, sometimes our visitors would help us to further narrow down the dating of a painting, because he would say that, well, in this painting, he did not see this particular building that was built, so it must have been painted before that particular year. So this is the kind of information that we were able to capitalize on, and later on, to update our database. But of course, we may not be able to publish that information in our catalog, but our collection database was, as a result of that, updated,
enriched, right?
Yes.
And another collection that I find absolutely incredible, that is very, very much the juice of this, is photography. Photography collection that exists, because you have paintings, but imagine photography. It's probably even simpler. We already have the scans of the photography of that place in Lisbon. Gives me an idea. Now you can, with Google Earth, you can put the old photo from the 1930s or 40s or whatever, and then put the today. There are actually books But this tool really, you know, enhances the possibilities and the creativity because of the
because you can
engagement with
actually
the
go
public.
around. The 360 view is
Yeah,
really incredible.
yeah,
And that's the part that
incredible.
you try to, then at that point, you really ask yourself, well, when the artist or when the photographer decided to, you know, look at this particular, you know, frame, what he was ignoring was the other 270 degrees
Okay, so
that he could have chosen or she could have chosen. So I find it to be
yeah, that's
fascinating.
another magical thing of the project is that, and you mentioned that at the beginning, is that it kind of allows you to, you know, within limitations, of course, you know, to enter a little bit the context, the landscape of the artist himself, you know, it kind of enables you, and through that understand a little bit more, you know, even not only the painting but also texts and Hong Kong of the time. So it's really time travel, and that's why you chose that
Yeah,
name, I
and this
suppose.
kind of research would have been difficult to do, say, 20 years ago. And it would not even occur to a scholar just doing conventional art historical research, because you'll be just reading autobiographies of the artist, and then you'll be reading books about his styles. But then you wouldn't think about, okay, well, actually, where had he gone? You know, where was he? Or where was she?
Where did he stop?
Yeah, exactly.
Where did he
And
look?
where did he go afterwards,
So on.
right? And so it was a lot of fun for us
Exactly.
just to
That's a
imagine
lot of
that. I mean,
fun.
we have no definitive accounts on what the artist may have done before and after, but it was just a lot of fun. Yeah.
Okay, but as a scholar, sorry to monopolize, Akiko, but it's just in the conversation. As a scholar, art historian, that's what you are, okay? As a scholar, how much value, how much weight do you give to these alternative sources? Okay, so now put yourself in the, you know, in the mind of art historian who writes papers, catalogs, books, and so on. How is it the field of art history today? Does it welcome these alternative sources, these kind of crossings between disciplines and use of technology? How is it the field today?
Oh, I think it would change the way that we conduct research, even though it may not necessarily be reflected in the articles or the books that we had done on the subject at this moment. But as I had mentioned earlier, because we were able to trace the footsteps of the artist, sometimes it makes it more real for us to imagine the trip that the artist had to take back in the 1950s and 1960s, because at that time there was no MTR, there was no subway. So, for us to get to point A to point B in Hong Kong, it may be a 20-minute train ride. But back in the day, you were talking about half a day's worth of travel. But what exactly did that mean? But now with this tool, even though the street views, of course, have changed a lot, but you can still get some kind of idea of that way of life. But as to how this understanding may change the way we write about the artworks, I don't want to be over ambitious and to say that, oh, this has revolutionized our
Yeah,
our
sure. I'm not
scholarship,
saying that exactly,
but
exactly.
but it has made, it has definitely made our research a lot more vivid, and made our discoveries much more relatable.
Absolutely.
And it's a lot of fun. We really enjoy
I
this.
know that. Yeah, exactly. And that's a bit the role of museums, to kind of translate when they translate, the ivory tower, to society. It has to be engaging. It has to be fun, and it has to compete. Unfortunately, we have to compete with everyone, 24 hours looking at their screens, and so we have to think about that too. So, Akiko.
Yes. And you've also made a really nice online booklet catalog too, right? To enjoy.
Yeah. And I invite everyone to go and visit our website.
Yep.
The connection, the link is below in the description.
Yep.
And have a look at the materials and more PDFs that Josh and the team of the Art Museum Chinese University of Hong Kong have left us to the UMAC Award, and you can access them there, and also the link to the website of the exhibition that generated everything that we are talking about. So I think that's it, Akiko. No?
Yes, I think Josh and your wonderful team have really helped to rise from the ashes and helped the city, Hong Kong, to heal. I think so.
Yeah. Have you been
Great
to Hong
job.
Kong, Akiko? Have you been to
No,
Hong Kong? I haven't
no,
either.
not yet. I'd love to
We
visit. I
must.
was about to
We will
visit, but
welcome you
then
to visit.
lockdown.
Yes,
Yeah, but
all of you.
look, you're closer. You're closer,
know.
Akiko. You can go. It's like 1 hour, I don't know, 2 hours flight or something.
Yeah,
Maybe a bit
definitely.
more. But anyway.
But then I'll study
Okay.
beforehand using your
Absolutely.
virtual tour, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's a pre-travel tour
Right,
and
yeah.
also a post-travel tour for the memories and organization of our memories. Thank you so much, Josh. Thank you so much, Akiko.
Thank you.
Very much.
And I invite, thank you so much of those of you attending live in our UMAC channel. And now I invite you to the next presentation of the next finalist of the UMAC Award, which will be, when is it, Akiko?
September 8th.
So next
Same
Thursday.
time, yes. It will be on a
Exactly
Thursday.
the same time as
here.
now.
Yes. And it will be
9
by
a.m. Lisbon and 5 p.m.
5
Tokyo.
Tokyo.
And the second finalist is precisely from Tokyo, the University Museum of the University of Tokyo Intermediathèque. They are going to talk to us about their project, Orchids. Orchids, I don't never know how to say this. Orchids Blossom.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marta.
And,
Thank you,
thank you,
Akiko. And thank
Josh,
you,
again.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.